The judges will now introduce themselves.
Good morning. My name is Molly Russell. I'm an attorney at Legal Aid of West Virginia, and I specialize in domestic violence law. Michael?
Michael, you're muted again.
Be happening. That must happen automatically. Thank you. My name is Dr. Michael Anderson. I live in Walker, Minnesota, up north. I'm a retired professor and college administrator. I work with Native American kids in the public schools for now.
My name is Ed Philpott. I am a trial lawyer. I'm in New Hampshire. My practice is statewide, and I am the immediate past president of the New Hampshire Bar Association.
Okay, and before we get started, just a little housekeeping. You all are Rhode Island, correct?
Just making sure.
Okay, here we go.
Wait, we have to do introductions.
Oh, they're introductions. I'm just ready to go, guys.
Yeah, you are.
Okay.
I'm Julia Mandeville. Hello, I am Zeta Wenzel.
Hello, I'm TJ Smith.
Grace, can you try again? We weren't able to hear you.
Are you muted?
You have to unmute.
Grace Lane.
There you are. Okay. And who is your all's teacher?
A teacher named Miss O'Brien.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, now we're ready. Okay. Unit 4. How have the values and principles embodied in the Constitution shaped American institutions and practices? Question 1. It would be inconsistent with the constitutional separation of the executive and legislative powers to let the pardon power be exercised by the latter. What were the framers' reasons for giving the president the pardon power? And do you agree or disagree with them? Bullet 1. According to framer James Wilson, if the president abuses the pardon power, he can be impeached and prosecuted. Do you agree with Wilson? Why or why not? Bullet 2. In your opinion, what constitutes high crimes and misdemeanors?
The framers had many discussions at the Philadelphia Convention about the power of the executive, the place of this branch, and how limitations and checks on it would be structured. Rufus King stated, quote, "It would be inconsistent with the constitutional separation of the executive and legislative powers to let the prerogative pardon power be exercised by the latter," end quote. Article 2 was designed to give the executive branch narrow and defined powers, as to not place too much authority into one person's hands. The president was never meant to hold the place that it does as the primary part of the government. While the framers vested the pardon power in the President of the United States to be seldom used and often checked, the impeachment power does not work the way it was designed to, because the president has taken significant amounts of power with no punishment.
Pardon power was granted to the executive branch in Article 2, Section 2 of the United States Constitution. This clause states, quote, "He shall have the power to grant reprieves and pardons for offenses against the United States, except in cases of impeachment," end quote. The framers reasoned that vesting the pardon power to the president was an act to prevent miscarriages of justice and provide the president with a way to end treasonous activities. The framers understood that people made mistakes, especially in times of war, so the executive branch was able to erase their charges and ease tension and create peace after war. Former President Harding pardoned a socialist leader, Eugene V. Debs, for organizing against World War I. On the other hand, one of the most questionable pardons occurred when President Ford pardoned former President Nixon. In this controversy, articles of impeachment were drawn up against President Nixon because he violated the public's trust with his involvement in the Watergate scandal. Nixon resigned and Vice President Ford assumed the presidential position. His first move was to pardon Nixon of his crimes. While this could be explained as former President Ford's way of helping the country move forward, many people felt as though it was a manipulation of the power. This scandal brought forth controversy over the unchecked pardon power and caused the American people to question whether or not it should be modified.
The Attorney General can influence the President's ideas and make suggestions, and the Supreme Court can rule on whether or not the pardons are constitutional. Overall, these restrictions don't seem like enough. Congress should have some checks on this pardon power. A 2/3 vote from the Senate on the power would ensure that the executive's pardons are constitutional. The framers had difficulty during the Constitutional Convention deciding how to phrase the restrictions for impeachment. After discussing the terms corruption, maladministration, and simply just treason and bribery, they decided on the phrase high crimes and misdemeanors, which remains undefined in the US Constitution. All 4 presidents that articles of impeachment were brought against were charged with high crimes and misdemeanors. This suggests that an obstruction of justice or Congress or an abuse of power are all worthy of impeachment by the House. The grounds for impeachment are different from a normal criminal case because the president is not required to have committed a statutory crime. For example, in 2019, former President Donald Trump was charged with committing an abuse of power. The article said he interfered with Ukraine's foreign government by suspending taxpayer money that Congress had appropriated for the military until they investigated his running candidate, Joe Biden. The House members decided that this was grounds for an abuse of power because the president used his executive power for personal political gain.
Only 3 of the 46 presidents have been impeached, with the exception of former President Nixon, who resigned before he could be. Alexander Hamilton brought up the idea in the convention that the president should be impeached if he violates public trust. Unfortunately, almost all presidents have violated public trust with no punishment. Impeachment was the power created to keep pardons fair. To this, anti-federalists argued that the impeachment power would not be used enough. The framers knew that the pardon power was a lot for one person, so they discussed sharing the power with the Senate, but it was never followed through. The founders reasoned that by giving the pardon power to solely the president, the importance would be elevated. The president would be scrutinized by the people for his pardons and therefore less likely to abuse it for self-interest and personal political gain. The pardon power was a crucial power given to the executive, however, it grew and changed over the years.
Sure, Molly.
Do you believe that impeachment today provides the same check that framers intended it to? Why or why not?
Well, when creating the impeachment power, it was sort of a way to fight back against the anti-federalists, a way for the Federalists to say the president's not a monarch because he's able to be removed in addition to his term limits and other checks on the executive branch. I feel as though it maybe was never exactly what they wanted it to be, because Hamilton did talk about the president being impeached if he violated the public's trust. However, only 3 presidents have really been impeached. So does it serve the check that it was meant to serve? I think it could be used maybe more often.
Do you think that it is or that it should be an unlimited power? 2-part question. Is it and should it be?
Well, the pardon power could be seen as like an unlimited power because Congress can perform an impeachment like whenever they feel necessary. I think there are, it's very limited because the impeachment process has become politicized so much more recently, and just in general overall over the course of all the impeachments. The most partisan vote ever for an impeachment in the Senate was only 57 to 43, which is still not enough to convict.
Going along with Grace said it being limited, it takes so long for the impeachment process to happen that it isn't used as much as it should be or can be. So it's not always unlimited.
I'm interested in hearing some examples. Your team has expressed the idea that almost all presidents have broken the trust without punishment. So what examples are you thinking of that where you say, pick a president other than Mr. Trump and say, this one broke the trust? What are your examples? That's a quote from your preparation.
Yes. So for one example, Congress definitely doesn't always perform impeachment when they feel that like sometimes that's just not the best choice to make. With President Reagan and his involvement in the Iran-Contra scandal, that was a matter where Congress definitely could have impeached him for an abuse of power, but they chose not to because it was right after the Nixon impeachment and the public still favored President Reagan.
Okay. Can you think of any other examples? That's a good one, by the way.
Well, I feel as though with the everyone could say, you know, all the different political parties could come up with an example where they felt like their president they felt like their trust was betrayed. And like Grace was saying, it may not be best to impeach because not everyone's going to agree with that as well. Because not everyone feels like their trust was betrayed by the president, but everyone feels like their trust was betrayed by at least one.
So do you think that that partisanship that you're talking about, that politicization, you know what the word, politicization of the process serves as a check on impeachment? And if so, what are the implications for the pardon power?
I do believe that the
That word.
that word of the impeachment power is a check. It can be a good check, but it can also be a bad check, because if a president needs to be impeached for violating the public's trust or whatever the president did, but it will hurt one of the party's feelings, if the impeachment isn't gone through, it could also affect the nation. So it could check the pardon power and the impeachment power and not let it go through, but it would then affect the nation in a bad way.
So when you talk about it in the context of the presidential pardon power, though, so now you have impeachment being politicized and not utilized for that reason. Then you have presidents such as Ford making controversial pardons. So what do you think the impact of that process is on the pardon power? I mean, if impeachment is one of the ways you punish a president for high crimes and misdemeanors, what about using impeachment for abuses of the pardon power?
Yes, impeachment is a large check on the executive, so that would be probably an excellent use of it. If there was a partisan pardon, many people felt as though that person should not have been pardoned, then it could be seen as sort of a way to, I guess, warn future presidents that, hey, you can't pardon someone if they don't deserve to be pardoned, and if it seems like a very wrong decision to make. Because if you make that choice, then you could be impeached.
Okay.
I would like to go back to the idea of trust. So even in an instance where trust, it's been proven it's been betrayed, such as with former President Trump, the Ukrainian incident, or with the insurrection, if public perception remains mostly the same, does that render impeachment meaningless?
Well, impeachment should always, of course, be a reflection of the people and popular sovereignty. A president shouldn't be impeached if the people still have all their trust in him. But if it gets to the point where a majority of both bodies of Congress do decide to go through with an impeachment, maybe the people need to understand more where the government is going.
Okay. I would like to hear you tell me a little bit of what you understand about Eugene V. Debs and why he was pardoned. You brought him up as an example, and I hadn't thought of him, so educate me.
Well, that was an example of a pardon after wartime to kind of ease tension between the sides. And he was a socialist leader. And then the president said that if he would come to Washington, D.C. to meet him, he would be happy to pardon him.
So why did he need pardoning? What had he done?
Eugene V. Debs was organizing against World War I, I believe. Yeah, World War I, because he didn't believe in the same beliefs that the people who were orchestrating World War I believed in. So he was avoiding the draft and did not want to go and fight. So he technically committed treason, I believe.
So I'm interested in this concept of the impeachment being used or not used based on
Based on time.
Yeah, based on time.
based on time. All right, guys, you did. You can breathe. Okay. All right, so as far as what you all said, I thought it was a very bold statement to say all presidents have broken the trust without punishment. I thought that was just swinging big, but the fact that you could back it up with Iran-Contra, I would have loved to have hear more examples, because I think that this is a bipartisan issue, and it just delve into maybe both political parties, so that's my suggestion for there. I thought you guys did a good job of answering the questions directly. It was a question and a concise answer, so I appreciated that. Good job, everyone. Michael?
Okay, I too asked the question about the all have broken the trust, and you came up with Iran-Contra. That was an excellent, really excellent, quick response. I really wanted to go down the road of exploring, because your team said that it might hurt one of the party's feelings. Can you demonstrate proof that the parties have feelings? I'm there with you.
Yeah.
If you can make that happen, you've made my day.
Yeah, there's another hearing.
Yes, thank you. But I also like, I hadn't thought about Eugene V. Debs, and he always has been a very intriguing character. And he, in my mind, is an example of the differences between how people are treated with respect to protestations. As you know, I think there's so much protesting happening right here in Minnesota, where I live, and around the country, that it's interesting to see that he needed pardoning for protesting against a war. Because I remember protesting against a war too, the Vietnam War, and no one ever charged me with anything. So things really change over time, and your group was astute in pointing that out. I like that. Thank you.
So I liked the scope of your historical references. I thought that was really well done. I also was really intrigued by your focus on the that word. I'm not going to be able to say that word all day now, but I was really intrigued by that, and was going at the idea that certain pardons, like Reagan, the fact that Reagan wasn't impeached. I thought that was very interesting, and it was very interesting because pretty much everybody, including Reagan, knew that he had been involved in Iran-Contra, yet he wasn't impeached because he was popular. And I think probably nobody felt that he was going to be convicted. I thought that was a really neat thread for you guys to pull on and to explore. So creative and good. Thank you. I also liked your teamwork. Well done. And it was a great presentation, and good luck to you.
Thank you.
Very much.
Thank you very much.
I'll go have
Thank
breakfast.
the students and congratulate them on their work for today.
Yeah.
Excellent job, guys.
Nice job. I'm very
Ladies
proud
and
of you.
gentlemen.
All right, I'm going to end the recording now.